So, if everything goes well and you're our next senator, what are you going to do day one? What is the day one agenda?
Well, day one is I feel like someone needs to speak truth to this mob that's burning and rioting and looting in the streets of America. You say anything about it and people are calling you a racist. I think as I have traveled Tennessee, the vast majority of people, especially up here in Northeast Tennessee, they're just sick and tired of this. Look, America is the greatest country in the history of the planet. My family story, my life story is a testament to that. And I just think these folks right now are tearing at the soul of this nation, trying to tear us apart. And what we need to do is we need to come together, and someone's got to take on this mob. And the other thing is, look, I was in the middle of this pandemic. I was on the front lines, in the ICUs, taking care of trauma patients, and we are entirely too reliant on the Communist Chinese government for our masks, our gowns, our gloves, 20 of our medications, vital antibiotics. I mean, we don't make them here. We are reliant on our Communist Chinese enemy. And for the last 30 years, the Washington Republican establishment, they have sold our jobs down the river. And what we need to do is have a second industrial revolution and bring those jobs back here. But make no mistake, we have to do this now. And if I'm your next U.S. Senator, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I'm sure you can speak from your experience as a doctor. Do you think that the federal government's response to this pandemic, is there any policy you think should have been done differently, or just anything different in general?
Well, first of all, the president, I think, has navigated this the best that anybody could, with decisions coming at him 100 miles a minute. But who I do think has failed us are groups like the CDC with delayed testing and part of the government bureaucracy. That's why the president wanted to outsource a lot of this to the private sector and public-private partnership, and that's what I believe in. But right now, look, I know the numbers are increasing across Tennessee, but if you look at the number of hospital beds that are being utilized, the number of ICU beds that are being utilized, we are still well within capacity. We have so much capacity. But what we cannot do, what we must not do, is shut America down again. It kills small businesses. It's killed our economy. What we need to do is protect those people who are at risk, older folks, folks with medical conditions. But what we, protect nursing homes. But we cannot shut America down. If I'm your next U.S. Senator, I will fight till the end to make sure that does not happen.
And speaking of the economy, would you be in favor of a second round of stimulus checks going out to people?
Look, right now, this CARES Act that we just did, what effectively we did was we took $2 trillion, we flew up in a helicopter, and we threw it all down, just seeing where it would land. And where did it land? It ended up with lobbyists, with the special interests. The small business groups, like up here in Northeast Tennessee, most of those folks didn't get it. Where I grew up in rural Tennessee in Coffee County, they didn't get it. So if we're going to do any type of stimulus, it's got to be surgical, it's got to be strategic. Look, we have a $26 trillion debt right now. That's $75,000 per child, per person. Our debt to GDP ratio is climbing. We can't continue this. And so whatever we do next, it just can't end up in the special interests and the lobbyists. I mean, this is the problem with these career politicians in Washington. That's why I'm running, because we need a conservative outsider in the U.S. Senate.
And I think you have read the entire Obamacare document.
Yes.
What would you like to see replace that?
Well, let me just first say this. The Washington Republican establishment, they said if you give us the House, if you give us the U.S. Senate, we'll repeal and replace Obamacare, and they failed us. It was the single greatest failed, broken political promise in American history. And they failed because they didn't have a plan, and I've got one. I've read Obamacare cover to cover. I'm a doctor. I created a nonprofit called Healthy Tennessee. We've taken care of thousands of patients up here in Northeast Tennessee for free. What we need is a free market-based system which focuses on three things. The first is pricing transparency. No one in medicine knows what we're paying for. Number two, an individual insurance market without the hand of government. Right now, government regulation is driving up insurance prices. We need more. I believe that health insurance for individuals, for small businesses, should be tax deductible. And finally, I believe we need to pay for prevention. Right now in our country, we just pay to treat sickness and disease. So if you have diabetes, everybody spends tens of thousands of dollars to take care of you. But if you're pre-diabetic, we won't invest cents on the dollar. So prevention, transparency, and individual insurance market. That's our path forward.
One more kind of pandemic-related
Sure.
thing. How are you feeling about these mask mandates that localities are issuing? Should this be done on a more state or federal level? Are people right to mandate this, essentially?
Here's my problem with a mask mandate. Today you say, well, Manny, I want you to wear a mask to protect people from the coronavirus. I'm the federal government, or I'm the state government, or I'm the local government. I'm here to tell you, you have to do this. What are they going to tell us that we got to do in the name of public safety tomorrow? And so I don't believe in these mandates. I think that masks in high density populations where people are at risk, for example in Nashville or Memphis and other places, or if you are older, you have medical conditions, I think it's right. But what we can't do is force everybody to wear a mask. I'm not for that. And as a doctor, as someone who believes in our constitutional liberties, I just can't stand for that.
So even here, kind of in Northeast Tennessee, perhaps, maybe it wouldn't be necessary to mandate these things.
Well, I just don't believe in mandates. I don't think it's constitutionally sound for someone to come into my house and tell me I need to wear a mask. I just don't. And if I'm your next U.S. Senator, I will fight against that. Look, right now in America, we are faced with a challenge that we've never faced before, and that is putting our constitutional liberties first versus folks who are trying to take away those liberties in the name of public safety. Now, I'm a doctor. I created a nonprofit that focuses on prevention. I was in the middle of this COVID crisis. I have seen it. But what we have to remember as a nation right now is that our Constitution, our First Amendment rights, our rights to live the way we want to live, that's what makes America very different than every other country in the world. And so we got to stand by our Constitution, no matter what.
Yeah, and your campaign ads are very noticeable, and you brought it up first, the rioting and the looting. I think many people are with you on that. They've had enough of it. As far as, do you think there is racial inequality in this country, and would you like to see anything done about that aside from, I guess, the craziness?
Look, let me just say this. I grew up in a very small town. I was born in America. My parents were immigrants. When I was raised, they had thick Indian accents. Nobody looked like us. Nobody talked like us. But no one ever made you feel it. And I grew up listening to Randy Travis and George Jones. I was climbing on tractors, playing baseball, because our community brought us together. And in America right now, that's what we need. That's what we need. Our younger generation, they're being raised to look at each other and say, well, what's the difference between us? What makes us different? And what I believe we need to do is we need to look at each other and say, look, we are all God's children. We all share a common story, the American story. Let's focus on that to bring us through some of these challenging times of our economy that's in the tank, of this pandemic, of all of these challenges. But you have groups like Antifa, like the radical left, and what they are trying to literally do is start a race war in this country. And I just can't stand for that.
You've expressed support for President Trump and his policies many times. Is there anything you might disagree with, any viewpoint of his that maybe you'd like to see done differently?
I think he's doing the best he can right now with what he's got. I just believe that no matter what, we can't shut down the government. We can't shut down the economy again, no matter what happens. And I really think people want an end to illegal immigration. I think they're sick and tired of it. And so we need to keep building that border wall. We need to end chain-based migration. We need a merit-based system. We need to end birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants. And he's done what he can with a do-nothing Congress. But I would just encourage him to, keep pushing on illegal immigration. We got to stop it.
And let's talk about, let's say we had this poll the other week. You were well within the margin of error. What can you do within this last month to kind of put you over the top?
Sure. Well, for the last 18 months, I've been traveling to Northeast Tennessee, meeting every voter, shaking every hand, and that's what people expect from someone who's running for the U.S. Senate. They want to meet that person. They want to talk to them. They want to know about their faith, about their life story, about what they believe, about who they are. That's what makes East Tennessee, and specifically Northeast Tennessee, so incredible, is that that's what people want to know. And so in this last month, I'm going to do exactly what I'm doing today, and that's travel all across Northeast Tennessee, talking to people in East Tennessee and all across the state. We're doing town halls in almost all 95 counties. We're traveling to all 95 counties. We're shaking every hand. We're talking to every voter, because what I have learned is people, they are sick and tired of the Washington insiders. They don't want Mitt Romney's best friend. They want someone who comes from outside of government, someone who is Christian, someone who is conservative, someone who is going to stand and fight for the people in Tennessee, and that's who I am.
Only a couple more things.
Sure.
You know, as our economy is going to be recovering from this pandemic, how do we bring, you know, not just jobs back, but good paying jobs, especially the rural areas like Northeast Tennessee?
Well, first of all, in rural areas and in places across Northeast Tennessee, there's so many economic opportunity zones, places where you can invest. It's good for investors, it's good for the economy, it drives employment. I believe, for example, let's take our gowns, our gloves, our masks, all the stuff that were made in China. Why can't we bring those jobs back here? Let's get the federal government to give tax exemptions. Let's get them to deregulate to make it easier. Let's pay for the freight to get those companies back here. Let's invest in these economic opportunity zones and make those factories right up here in Northeast Tennessee. We can make those gowns, those gloves, those masks, those medications. We could bring people jobs. We could do incredible things in Tennessee like we did in World War II. And I believe to stimulate our economy and generate growth, we got to get the federal government out of the way. We got to deregulate. But look, the best cure to any economy is to not shut it down. We can't stimulate our way into a better economy. We just cannot shut down again, period.
And as we finish up here, anything else I'm missing or any final things voters should be knowing?
Sure. I just want to say to the people in Northeast Tennessee tonight, if you're watching this, if you're sick and tired of the same old career politicians, the Washington insiders, telling you one thing, doing the other, more talk, less action, and you want someone who's going to wake up in the morning and fight for you, I believe you should vote for me. You should go to drmannyforsenate.com. Early voting is next week. I need your help. I need your support, and I cannot do this without you. So thank you.